Hey, welcome back to the Department Chair Leadership Podcast. As always, just so thankful that you are taking time out of your busy schedule to improve yourself and those you serve as a leader. Going to start off with a question here. Does your evaluation instrument, what you use for yearly reviews? Now, everyone's a leader pretty much in any organization, whether you have the title or not. What I talk about today might be a little more geared towards those with the titled leadership roles, but I think it's valuable for everyone. So, the evaluation instrument that you use to maybe as the leader, you're the boss, you're a principal, superintendent, chair, whatever side you're coming from. If I were to look at that and not knowing much about your organization, to what extent would I be able to get a good feel for your organizational culture, climate, and core values? You see, as I record this time of year in the spring, certainly in K-12 and higher ed, but perhaps in other industries, or certainly as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, it's not uncommon. It's probably more common actually that we have some type of yearly evaluation, okay, whatever that means. And again, there's probably check-ins throughout the year, but in my role as a department chair, I certainly have to do that, and I'm evaluated. If you're in the K-12 space and you're a principal or superintendent, you understand how that works, or even if you're a teacher. We have times as teachers, at least once a year, where we get a formal eval. And again, please know that there are evaluation instruments out there, certainly in the K-12 arena, that are validated, reliable. So I'm not saying that we should shun them. What I am saying, though, is perhaps either in addition to the evaluation instrument you're already using, or if you're in a scenario where it's more organic in terms of how the organization develops it, or maybe within the org chart it's developed differently. What I would encourage you to do, and what I want to talk to you today about, and maybe give you some takeaways, is how we can evaluate to elevate. You see, the assessment instruments that we use should ultimately be the guiding pillars or factors in what we deem is appropriate performance and behavior that aligns with the mission, values, culture, climate, all of that of the organization. So the three takeaways, things that I want to help you with and encourage you in the time that we have today is, first of all, I'm going to talk about what we measure matters. Okay, every organization measures something. So to reverse engineer that, you want to really know what matters to an organization. Look at what they're measuring and then dig in on a daily basis and see if that's an outcome or if that's really what they just show up every day worried about are the numbers. Daily habits, daily habits. If we want to really change behavior, change outcomes, we got to focus on habits and systems. And then we need to make sure that at the end of the day, yes, metrics matter. Whatever business we're in, there's a number that matters, be it sales, enrollment, growth. But we always got to make sure at the end of the day that we're putting morale before metrics. So, as you know, my background is teaching. And those of you that are listening that understand teaching, this will resonate, that when we make an assessment, an evaluation instrument, a rubric, if you will, if you are planning a lesson for your students, the first thing we do is not look at page 1, chapter 1. We actually look at, what does the final day look like? What do I want? And we know this, if you remember from teacher prep, we use the verbs. What do I want my students to be able to do, know, create, synthesize? Also, if you follow some curriculum models out there, we'll take it a step further. What do I want them to feel? And what are some just true, enduring understandings that I want them to take away? So when we look at how we are evaluating people in our organization, I think we need to use a similar model because we're all, if we think about this, whatever we do in our organization, whether it's in education or outside, we are all reaching or striving towards a final outcome. Now, if you want an interesting book on that, read Simon Sinek's The Infinite Game, because it talks about how there are some things that we truly can measure. It's a game. We know when it starts, we know when it ends, and there's a scoreboard. And then other times there are things that are more infinite in nature, but we try to make them finite. And nonetheless, I guess I'll just say it's a good read to give you some perspective. So, looking at your evaluation instrument, what is it that you really want in your organization? What do you want people to do, to know, and ultimately, whether it's students, whether it's board members, stakeholders, customers, what do you want them to, how do you want them to feel? How do you want them to behave? And what do you want them to do? And then work backwards. You see, if we say that we have a culture and a climate where we value doing the right thing, where we value people's input, where we truly want to put morale before metrics, then we need to be evaluating people's behavior on a daily basis on those items. So if front facing, we say, hey, we value a sense of community, we value honesty, we value doing the right things. And then what really determines if you get to stay in our organization is a checklist that is simply boiled down to numbers, right? The teacher, the employee, fill in the job title, does all these things. And don't get me wrong, there are some that we need to do. There are managerial things. But if there's a huge disconnect between the test, okay, an assessment, a rubric, evaluation, an observational protocol, whatever you want to call it, that's a test. If there is a disconnect between the test you were giving and what you claim you want people to do, then you need to change one or two things, right? If I say that I want my students to be able, I'll just make this up, to write an essay about standards A, B, and C, and I spend the whole school year testing them and giving them a checklist that success looks like being able to understand standards X, Y, Z, should I really be surprised if two things happen at the end of the year when I assess them? Not only do they not know A, B, and C, but they're not behaving in a manner that's consistent with knowing A, B, and C. So I want you to think about your evaluation instrument and think about some things that you can maybe add. If you know, what are your core values? What are your core values? What are some of those key indicators, those verbs that are in your mission statement, your strategic plan? All of those things that we work on that are so important, we need alignment with that. Because, you know, a strategic plan, an evaluation instrument, mission statement, without people being asked and being held accountable to live those words on a daily basis, it's simply a piece of paper. Study any successful organization out there, and you're going to see connection between what they say they do, how they do it, and how they hold people accountable to do it. So what I want you to think about and maybe take away is, again, step back. Am I measuring what really matters? Or the other way, what am I measuring? And does that rubric, does that checklist, what really ends up determining if somebody in the organization is successful, does that really align with who we say we are and what we want to be and how we want to make people feel and what we want to enable them to do and become? If not, to what extent can we talk about, can we measure daily habits, systems, procedures that truly are reflective of who we are? If we say that compassion is one of our core values, then that would be something that we need to evaluate people on, certainly on their formal yearly evaluation. And then look at our metrics. And again, please understand, I've been in education my whole life. Metrics do matter. I'm not saying that. But here's what I think we need to do, and in my experience, what I think is very important. We have to look at the actual human beings whose behaviors and decisions must either start, stop, or be modified to get the metrics we want. So let's say we have a metric that isn't where we want it. Well, sitting around, I use the analogy, if you've seen The Music Man, right? Where what is it? Harold Hill goes around and he does the think method. We're going to think and we'll learn to play an instrument. Well, you know what? Sitting around a boardroom, sitting around a strategic planning meeting, thinking real hard about raising a metric is about as efficient as learning how to play an instrument doing that. But if we want to learn to play instruments, guess what we better do every day? Better find someone that can teach us how to play, and we better practice. And so what is your metric that you want to accomplish? And then reverse engineer it. This teachers do this all the time. It's called backwards design. We unpack our objectives. What are the organizational, which means what are the human behaviors, attitudes, emotions, thoughts, words, values, all of those things that need to change to at least be in alignment with those metrics? Just focus on moving the needle. Because again, if we need to move metric A by 10%, that can mean a lot of things, and make it work in your world. If we want to move it by 10% and all we do is change what we say on paper, we will implement this to raise that metric. We will form 3 committees and 2 new positions. Well, maybe that's important, but are we actually evaluating the behaviors on a daily basis? So the 3 things, and again, I hope this is enough to at least get you started here. This is kind of a topic that was brought to my mind a while back, and I said, that is really, I almost, it was interesting that as much as I love, the education space and leadership, I had never really spent time thinking about the extent to which our assessments, our what, employee evaluations, how those really need to be aligned with our core values, just like a properly designed lesson plan or unit or class. And so in doing that, the 3 things, again, what you measure becomes what matters. So think about what really matters to you and the extent to which you are measuring that in the human beings and their behaviors that they must do every day to move that needle. That takes us in, what are those daily behaviors that you need to encourage, enhance, eliminate, etc., to be in line with what will ultimately raise that metric. If you're a school and you say we need to get more students, but nobody leaves their office or does anything different, I got to change those behaviors, don't we? And then finally, always realize this: morale precedes metrics. Because without humans, without people who most of the time have to go above and beyond just the job description they are hired to do, without people making a decision to behave in a certain way and align their expectations and their character with that of the organization, guess what? Those metrics aren't going to move. Human beings are the fuel that raise our metrics. So again, I say evaluate to elevate. Let's use performance assessment to promote organizational culture, climate, and core values, which I believe ultimately are going to positively affect the metrics that we must necessarily be mindful of and most of the time either maintain or raise. So I hope this has been valuable to you. Let me know. Let me know if this causes you to create something and you want to share it. You have thoughts on it. Again, this is something I'm working on and want to really help people with and pursue more on my own. So as always, thank you for taking the time to listen in and join the Department Chair Leadership Podcast. I wish you well, and we'll see you next time.